Hi, John. Nice to have you on the show, on the interview. And thank you very, very much that you take the time for us. And appreciate it. And let's start an interview. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And big hello from Canada over to Germany.
Yeah. You're living in Vancouver, on the Vancouver area?
That's correct. Vancouver, British Columbia.
Great. Yeah, you were born there or near there, or is it where you were grown up?
Yeah, this is where I grew up. I was actually born in Washington, D.C. I have an American passport, but
Okay.
moved to Canada when I was 3 years old.
Okay, so maybe you were born in America, but you're a Canadian.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, let's start. Maybe we should start at the beginning of your career. You were, as most of us know, you're more of an enforcer or a goon guy. How would you describe yourself as you started your career? Was it always that you wanted to be a goon, or was it like you were put into it from your coaches, or was it a transition while you were playing at junior level?
Well, when I grew up playing hockey, I played a recreational sport in Canada. That's the most common sport over here. Something like maybe football over in Europe. Every kid played, and if you
Yeah.
didn't play, you were, seemed to be something a little bit odd or a bit different. And I just grew up, loving the game just like everybody else, but also did a lot of other sports, including a lot of combat sports, which included boxing, taekwondo, which I just about had my black belt in taekwondo before I graduated school. Then I also did a 5-year wrestling stint of Greco-Roman freestyle wrestling. So I was very interested in the combat sports, not in the role that it may come across as being a bully, but more so of self-defense. I grew up in a white predominant area and struggled early on in my life, being a little bit different and being colored, and being raised by 5 women, my aunt, my sister, my grandmother, and my 2 sisters. They put me in combat sports for self-defense. And then as I grew up and started playing other sports like football, baseball, lacrosse, I continued to play hockey, but it wasn't really one of my most dominant sports. And then at a junior level over here in Canada, you're actually allowed to have altercations and actually fight. And this is where it all changed for me. Not knowing my prior skill level and prior self-defense, skill levels, I really excelled at that part of the game, even though in my younger years, I was known more of an actual goal scorer, believe it or not. But due to the fact that as the ranks move on and it gets harder and harder to make the next level, you have to apply for a role that's available that you excel at.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got some good coaching that basically explained to me that there's 2 sports in hockey. There's a team sport and then there's an individual sport. The team sport obviously being the game of hockey, and the individual sport obviously being fighting as a form of entertainment to the spectator.
Mm-hmm.
It basically explained to me how to manage both and play both to the best of my ability to help me excel at to the next level. And in doing so, we get labeled and so forth as goons or fighters or so forth. But if you really look at it, a lot of the hockey players that do have this skill set and are able to fight in the form of entertainment in the game are actually very skilled hockey players. It just gets overshone from the fact that so much attention is being brought to the actual fighting aspect of the individual sport in hockey.
Okay, like that's cool. It's very some insights that I didn't know. That's great. But that's what I thought. How you get into fighting on a regular basis at a hockey level, because as you said, you have you find your role. You have to find your role at a team, at how to get more ice time, or to get at the bigger stage. Speaking of the bigger stage, you played in Detroit, for example, for 2 years. At the bigger level, when there was a fight, have you prepared for it, or was it just going out there, someone threw a hit on a teammate and go for it, or was it like you were prepared, you go for it, or?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. Preparation is a huge key, and when you acknowledge that this is also a part of your game, when you're training during the summertime and so forth, you're not only just training your skills in the game of hockey as far as playmaking, skating, stick handling, shooting, anticipation, and so forth. For hockey players that take on the additional role of being a protector, you also have to work on those skills. So a good portion of my training as well was in the boxing ring, in the gym, hitting the bag, skipping, learning striking, working on balance, because it's a really unique style of fighting. You got to remember, we're standing on an eighth of an inch of steel and throwing as hard as we possibly can in a real fight. I do believe it's the only sport in the world that it's sanctioned where you're allowed to have a real face-to-face fight and not be charged. So it's not like you see on WWF wrestling or other fights. Even the UFC, they're padded. They, their hands are wrapped up. It's padded. It's controlled. In hockey, it's pretty violent. It's actually a real face-to-face fight. So as far as an adrenaline rush and the reality of it, if you're not prepared, you will definitely get seriously hurt. And that's why you see a lot of players get hurt and refuse to continue on with that aspect of their game, and unfortunately don't make it to the levels that they dream of, because it's just only the crazy survive, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the game of hockey has changed. You played mostly in the 90s. Back in that days, the fighting was, as you said, it was a little bit violent. They are now trying to get fighting out of the game because of the injuries, that they had injuries, the concussions. But the time you played, it was, as you said, violent. And what do you think? Is it good to change the game the way they change it, or would you like, that it stays the same you had to play the game?
Well, personally, I think it's absolutely fantastic what they're doing with the game. I also own a junior team over here in Canada to help develop hockey players, and they went to a full cage and eliminated fighting from the game. You're only allowed to fight 3 times a year, where back when I played in the league that I own a team in now, you were allowed to fight 3 times a game. So I really think that hockey's evolved, and I think it's for the best interest, not only for the individual players, for the longevity of them and also their safety. I also believe on an entertainment standpoint, I think it's a much better game to watch. And the reason I say that is it could be an oxymoron here, because I am a player that had over 3,000 career PIMs and 142 pro fights. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the consensus of the fights when fighting was really predominant in the game. And what I mean by that is a lot of guys used it as an intimidation factor, where they would go out and deliberately try to hurt a player to slow a team down. In other words, hit a player that wasn't interested in engaging in an altercation. And they called it the sucker punch, where you walk right up to a guy and just punch him in the face and break his jaw, and obviously instill fear in a lot of his teammates. So they had to do something, and they brought in the instigator rule, which I think really helped settle things down and stop the antics of a lot of players trying to use it as excessive force. But I also do think that it's crucial to keep an aspect of fighting in the game, due to the fact that you have these superstars and these European players and these great skilled North American players that basically are the forefront and the face of the game. You need to protect those players. For example, Vancouver Canucks just picked up a fantastic player in Patterson this year, Swedish player, is coming to the league at a very young age and is a very skilled player, where people really want to see a kid at 19 years old come in and excel at the world's highest level. And then you get big players that come in and take liberties on him. He's been out with a shoulder injury, he's been out with a knee injury. These players need protection. And so what I mean by they should keep this style of player in the game today is to make sure that other players are going to be held accountable they tried to take liberties on young, skilled players that people come to watch. And from a hockey player standpoint and a physical player standpoint, it is very important for those players to be in the game because they raise the salaries in the game. Those superstars raise the salaries where therefore everybody else in the league benefits from it, including a player like myself.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you live in Vancouver, so although near Vancouver, so are you attending Canucks games regularly or watch it on TV?
Correct. I'm part of the Vancouver Canuck alumni, being signed with the Vancouver Canucks. I'm an all-time season ticket holder, lifetime season ticket holder.
Okay.
As long as I'm contributing to the community and being a part of their charity events, which I do regularly. We actually, this past weekend, we were up in the Sunshine Coast. We played up in Courtenay, and then the weekend before we played up in Gibsons. And next week we'll go up to the interior and play in Logan Lake, and that's where a lot of the ex-Canucks, we get together, usually about 20 of us, and we usually bus it or fly in and play a charity game in these towns where we're welcomed with open arms, and we'll play against the local firemen or the local police or the local minor hockey coaches and raise money for charities for kids for sport, abused women and children, a lot of the unfortunate people, and basically create a good time for a lot of people. And like you say, like your dad would be a big supporter and things like that. Not so much the younger generation. I haven't played in 15 years, so the younger kids now wouldn't know who I was, but it would be the would come out and support and help out with the charities.
Yeah, that's very awesome. I like that you do that, or that the Canucks do that. I think when you have a name or when you're a celebrity, even if you're a little bit older, you can still raise some money for charity, do something for charity for guys, as you said, who are unfortunate, who have an unfortunate life or something, just to help them get a little smile on their face. Just playing hockey, that's awesome.
Exactly, but don't get me wrong, us old guys, when we get together, have a lot of fun too. We benefit from it as well.
Yeah, that's I believe you. That's sure. Talking about your time in Germany, you came over in 1998 to Nürnberg and played in Nürnberg for 3 years, and 1 year in Oberhausen. That's where we live. That's where I watched you getting 226 penalty minutes in 49 games. It was really awesome to see you live. It brought always smile to the face of the fans, like you played, and it was always entertaining the crowd, and not just with your fights. You also scored some goals, gave some assists, but as you pumped up the crowd, that was really exciting. Yeah, you want to talk some?
Well, I must say I played for 13 years, and the time in Germany, I would have to say, is probably one of the best times of my entire career. Minus obviously the first time I put an NHL jersey on for the Toronto Maple Leafs. That was obviously a real moving moment for me, of a lifetime of dedication and giving up a lot of my younger years in hopes of experiencing that dream. There's millions that go ahead and give up a lot of their youth for that dream and never get that experience, and I can just be grateful and fortunate enough that I did. But coming to Germany, second to none, bar none, is definitely the most exciting and greatest experience of my life. German was my second language in high school. I don't know if anybody over there actually knew that. 10 years later, not realizing that I would actually be playing in the country, I had forgotten all my Deutsch. So after my first year being there, I actually went back to school, to a school called House of Words in Nuremberg, and tried to learn German, basically at 26 years old, which was, a real feat. I went to school for about a year and a bit and started to slowly do my interviews in German and speak enough broken English to get around, and was given a lot of respect for that. There was a lot of players that were playing in Germany for 5, 6, 7 years and didn't speak any German. Which I felt, at the end of the day, if you're moving to someone's country, it's imperative that you try to learn their language. You don't have to be fluent, but at least make the effort. And I think that's where the response for me was overwhelming, because just trying to speak the language and making an effort in their country, in your country, I think that it was received very well. Once again, my German was very broken, but I enjoyed it, and it was by far the best experience of my life.
Yeah, but that shows what a great person you are, because yeah, you came over from North America. You had some NHL games. You could easily could have said, yeah, I'm a star. I don't have to speak German because, yeah, I'm John Craighead. But you tried, even when your German was not perfect, as you said. You tried, and that shows you that you are a great character, and then you're also a great guy for the locker room. Yeah, that's appreciation. That needs to be appreciated here.
Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Sorry?
Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Gern geschehen. One question we have here is what the difference from for the players is, what the fans are. In Germany, you know, the fans are cheering, are singing the whole game, and in North America, it's like yeah, the people sit in the stands. They cheer when there is a goal or a fight or something like that, but that's it. So there's a real difference. Everyone knows it, but for a player, how is it to be in a small stadium in Nürnberg in the 90s? It was a little ice hall. It was nothing like an arena nowadays. When there were 4,000 or 5,000 people screaming against maybe 20,000, but just 20,000 sitting there. Is it different for a player?
I know exactly what question that you're trying to ask, and it's bang on. That's probably one of the reasons why it was such a great experience. I had never experienced anything like that. I've played in a building of 22,000 standing room only over here in North America, and never heard a louder crowd in my first fight in Nuremberg in my entire life. Pulled out with 5,000 fans, but only half the building actually had seats in it. Everybody standing. And what I didn't understand was, when my first home game, I'm coming to the rink and I could hear all this screaming and cheering and roaring and singing, and the game hadn't even started yet. It was an hour before beat time. And I was asking one of the local German players, what was happening? Are they doing some kind of pre-show or something? And he said, no, those are just the fans getting their good seats, cheering and singing for appreciation of how excited they are about there's a match coming. And I thought he was joking, and I actually went up into the stands and had a little peek, and there were just people in the stands with their faces painted, dressed up almost like Halloween, wearing their home team colors, screaming and singing and chanting. And what it did for me was absolutely incredible, because it didn't matter how you were feeling for your games. If you were feeling a little bit under the weather, or you're feeling a little bit nauseated or sick, or maybe a little bit hurt from a previous match, you always felt up for the games when you heard those crowds. They always motivated you to do your best, and when you did your best, they give you that recognition and chant and sing your name. I've never heard my name chanted like that building in my entire life. You cannot even compare it to North American style, where it's very corporate. It's so expensive to go to a hockey game over here. Most of the people, or most of the season tickets, are owned by big corporations that don't even use the tickets. Like, you can go to a Vancouver Canucks game and you can see prime seats not even getting used, but they're paid for. So the comparison to how Europeans, even in soccer, and how passionate they are about their sport, really, is second to none in any sport or any country that I've ever played in.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because when you are there in the stands and cheering, and at the end of the day you think, okay, the player are focused on the game. Maybe they hear something like that. Some players say when they get booed, they get the motivation gets up, but at the end of the day you think, okay, the player doesn't recognize it. But when you say, okay, it was for you, it was a great experience, you heard it, and you were fascinated in Nuremberg, that tells us, the crowd in Germany, that okay, the player do recognize what is on the stands, and that's awesome to hear, because you just don't know if the player reacts to it, or if it's okay, let them sing, I'll play my game, and that's it. when we are talking about Germany, you had 4 years here. You had some Nürnberg, some great games against Frankfurt. Do you still know who was the toughest opponent here in Germany?
Well, I think they were all tough, but we had some good rivalries. I think Frankfurt was a tough building for me to go into. I had a really horrible experience there, but the way it was handled by the staff was absolutely fantastic in regards to security and so forth. Just like everywhere in the world, you deal with a little bit of racism and so forth. But the experience that I had for my first time in Frankfurt was a little bit difficult. They had hung a black Cabbage Patch doll over the glass by a skate lace with my jersey on it with number 88. And I thought that, okay, it was a funny joke, but if you were to do that over here in North America, you'd be in jail. And I had asked the referee, I said, hey, listen, like, what's this, right? This is brutal. Like, they're hanging a black Cabbage Patch doll by a skate lace over the glass with my jersey number on it. And he says, mach nichts, and just kept skating. And so, it did one of two things to me. It definitely motivated me to bring my game and bring the best of me, of John Craighead. And it also tested my intelligence, because at the same time, I understand what the message was, what the perpetrator was doing to provoke me. But understanding that I'm in a different part of the world and things are handled much different and seen much different than where I was from. So it was very educational for me. I was also brought into the building in a different entrance than my team. And I was also, exited the building from a different exit than my team due to, security issues of, people, trying to attack me, for the simple fact that not only was I a big physical player playing in the German league, I was also colored. So it definitely educated me in the fact that, it's a big world. There are still bad people in the world. There's still very many good people in the world. And being an educated gentleman that I am, I didn't let it, hurt my impression of what Germany was for me and what my experience was in Germany. You get that type of personality all over the world. I've got it more so over here in North America, in my own hometowns, than I have traveling the world. But it made it really exciting to come to Frankfurt. I always geared up. I had friends on the team that I played against in North America that were playing in Frankfurt, and they just knew that they got the best of John Craighead when I come in there, because I just really wanted to show them that, I'm a good player. I have passion, and I'll do whatever it takes to win. And I think a lot of teams admire players like that. And if I was actually playing in Frankfurt, they would have been loving me as much as they hated me.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get me wrong that I mentioned Frankfurt, because I saw a video a couple of days ago from a big fight between Nürnberg and Frankfurt. I didn't knew about the accident. You just told me. That was something I definitely not knew. Yeah, that's brutal, and that's not the way hockey fans should react. That's racism, and hockey is absolutely nothing that comes together. That's absolute disgusting, and great that you took.
And once again, that's one person out of how many million, right?
That's right. But
I look at it as a whole group or whole collective group, or let it stain my experience on the country. Like I said, you can get that kind of mentality and that kind of ignorance anywhere in the world. So it just made good for a good rivalry, and really made me prepare myself and also educate me that. All over the world, we're struggling to get along and find ways of finding peace. And I just hope that over time that there's hockey players of all races and colors that can just continue to pull on the rope to unite everybody, so we can all just enjoy the game as one.
Yeah, the game of hockey is just too good and too great to make it a bad thing with racism. But as you said, it's great. First of all, you made the best out of it. you just get motivated a little bit higher and made it made Frankfurt's life a bit harder. And the other thing is, if you were just a regular player, no one cared about, no one would have done it. So it just shows you that the Frankfurt fan was afraid that you were you were beating them, because if you were just one of the others, he wouldn't have done it. So you were just too good, and he was too scared of you. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, look, that's a great analogy.
Okay. You want to talk about what you're doing now? I don't know if I can can say you are a coach. You were a coach, and you will be a coach because you were suspended.
Yeah.
At Surrey Knights. Is this
right.
Spelled right?
Yeah.
You will begin your coaching again in the summer, or
no?
I just read it.
I'm back coaching this year. I'm an owner and operator of a junior hockey club over here. I bought the team 6 years ago, and what I'm doing is just developing hockey players, helping them go on to play professional hockey. I've in the last 15 years since I've retired, I've started a program called Survivor, where we train young hockey players and help them to improve to all levels. We've had a handful of players that are still playing in the National Hockey League today that have gone through our program, which we're pretty excited about. And then in the process, we purchased a junior hockey team 6 years ago, where I was the head coach. I coached for 2 years, actually for 3 years, and in my third year was suspended for protecting my hockey players in a brawl. Is actually what happened. I had one of the youngest teams in the league, and we played one of the older, more experienced teams in the league, and a brawl broke out, and they ended up sending 5 of my kids to the hospital, and one with a broken leg. Oh. So you can imagine it just, to even think about it, it's just a horrible scenario what happened. Basically run into a bunch of bullies and some coaches that sent their players to beat up a bunch of young kids. So I kind of took it personally. At that time, it wasn't about hockey for me anymore. These kids were like my sons. One of my sons was actually on the team at the time. And I broke the rules. I approached the other team's bench and wanted to give the fear that they were giving to my kids to them. And in doing so, got into a little bit of a pushing and shoving match. And I actually grabbed a couple of their coaching staff and give them a little bit of a fear, some angst. Was in the air for sure. But knowing that it was wrong, I knew I was going to get punished for it. But at that moment, I didn't care. What I seen what was happening to these poor kids was devastating for me. And I just grew up fighting bullies my whole life. And to see all these kids getting bullied in front of my face, I broke the rules. So in doing so, I found myself in court. They tried to give me an 8-year suspension and take my franchise away. But I stood my ground and admitted everything that I did and took full responsibility for it, and told them that it wasn't about hockey for me and rules when this happened. It was 20 kids beating up 20 kids to the extreme and sending 5 of them to the hospital and 1 with a broken leg. To me, that's not just an altercation or just a hockey fight. And if I was to do it over again, I would have reacted the exact same way to stop everything. And do what you need to do. That I'm going to stand by my decision and what I did. I acted strictly as a parent, acted as a coach, and acted as a protector of these young kids that trusted me to help teach them the game of hockey. And to stand there and watch them get beat up and sent to the hospital and then try to face them in the dressing room the next day and had to have done nothing, I would have never been able to walk in that dressing room and face them. I got myself involved in the altercation. I paid the price for it, ended up going to court and fighting the suspension in the highest level of court here and all the way to Hockey Canada. Well, after Hockey Canada reviewed it over 2 years, they said that they agree with what I did to the extent of trying to stop the scenario, but still understand that I was guilty of breaking a rule. So they took 5 years off my suspension, and I continued on into court to try to save my franchise because they wanted to kick me out of the league, and won my court case in Supreme Court here just 3 months ago, which was obviously big news for me. It was going to be the end of basically my hockey career if they would have took my franchise away and kicked me out of the game. But Hockey Canada and the Supreme Court Justice here in Canada said that basically John Craighead acted as a dad. He's been punished by not being able to coach his own team for 3 years. We will not take his team away from him, and we side with the decision that Hockey Canada made to take 5 years off his suspension. He's a good hockey guy. He's there for the Americans, and we support him. So the last few years in the game of hockey have been very difficult for me. I had went on and actually, during my suspension, opened a company called Kids Playtime, where we build the world's largest indoor theme parks for kids. I do subcontracting with International Play Company. I sent a crew from my company that are in the Netherlands right now, installing a massive indoor trampoline facility. I've flown basically all over the world in the last 3 years working for this company, including Korea, all over North America, and will continue on once my season ends, growing this company. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise. Not only was it a good life lesson for me about controlling my emotions in scenarios like that, it also gave me an opportunity to open another company and, branch out into the world in another set of eyes in another chapter of my life. So I know that the publicity sometimes is easy to say if the shoe fit, wears it. This guy was crazy. He was a hockey fighter. And yeah, he, of course, went over and beat up all the coaches. He's crazy like that. But when you read the fine print and understand where I come from and my background, I'm an educated guy. I graduated student council president of my school. I traveled the world. I spoke 1.5 languages at one time. And I do have a good conscience when it comes to making decisions. I hold myself fully responsible for the scenario that I put myself in. But like I told my lawyers, like I told the civil court justice here in Canada at Supreme Court level, including Hockey Canada, I acted out of being a dad, and I wouldn't have changed it. I learned from the lesson. Everybody in the scenarios learned from the lesson. The nice thing about the coaching staff with the team that we were playing, they even said that they are not innocent in the scenario that happened, although that they weren't punished. It takes two, to control a situation like that. Unfortunately, there was the only way I felt that I could control it is physically get involved and bring all the attention on myself to stop those kids from getting hurt.
Someone who knew you, how you played as a hockey player, you had as you said, you had to react this way because you couldn't have gone to the locker room if you just stood there and your kids got someone else, 5 of them go to the hospital and you just stand there on the bench and do nothing. That's not what John Craighead is or was in his career, and so I fully understand what you did. You was
but I won't do it again.
You had your punishment. You made the best out of it, and I hope this won't happen again. Not for you, because you just don't have to react that way, because the other team plays a little bit different, because as you said, there were kids on the ice, and if there is a hockey game where five kids have to go to the hospital, that's not hockey. That's something different. And maybe that was a lesson for the league, for the other team, for the other coach, and it won't happen again.
Exactly.
I hope so. You said one of your kids played there. I've searched a little bit. You have 2 sons playing right now. One is in Australia, and one is playing for the Northern Michigan University.
That's correct.
How often can you see them play? I think Australia is a little bit harder to achieve than Northern Michigan University, but maybe.
Yeah, well, the seasons are different. When it's summer here in Vancouver, Canada, it's winter in Australia. So unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch my oldest son, who also played for the Langley Knights, my junior hockey team. I coached him, or had the benefit of coaching him. He went over and played. He was actually in a car accident. He didn't play for a year, and got healthy and come back and was given an opportunity to go to Australia to play in their semi-pro league there, and had a great time. Led the league in scoring. Had a very successful season and a great experience for him. I think travel for young men is really important to get out into the world and see how big it is, and see how versatile it is. And he learned a ton. He's back now. He's working for me in his off season. He's in the Netherlands with my crew, working on the indoor trampoline facility that they're building over there. So he'll be back next week, and then I'll send him off most likely either to Dubai, or we have a job in Saudi Arabia, or maybe to even the Philippines. I might go with him. My season finishes February 7th, so when my season's over, basically I'll be left with 3 or 4 months to start recruiting when the evaluation camps start. But in that meantime, the opportunity of opening this business during my suspension has been great, because now I get the opportunity to travel. So I'll most likely start traveling with my son in my company, and when that happens. And my youngest, Darian, he's in his 3rd year in Northern Michigan, playing the NCAA Division I, led the entire country in game-winning goals last year out of 60 teams, 1,200 plus. Went to the New York Islanders training camp the beginning of the season this year, had a great showing, and is looking hopefully to sign with the New York Islanders before the season ends. So I've been very fortunate. Hockey's my life, obviously, so you can imagine how important it was for me to stand up and fight for my junior team and my program, and to keep my name in the game. Also being a member of the Vancouver Canuck alumni, who were just absolutely fantastic during this horrible scenario that I went through. They were in full support of me. They know me personally, and they knew that there's no other way that John Craighead would have reacted in a situation like that, and they fully supported me. So as far as my kids go, I've been lucky enough that, I was fortunate to have 2 boys that love the game and continue to play. My oldest son played for the first junior A team that I ever played for, was the first ever father-son junior A hockey player in that franchise the last 30 years. And my youngest son played on the Chilliwack Chiefs, where I turned pro out of, and was the first father-son player to play for that organization, where he turned into the NCAA and signed a 4-year ride with Northern Michigan. So I'm not doubtful that there would be a chance, and I'm just going to throw it out there, that one of my boys might end up in Germany one day and be a first father-son hockey player for the Nürnberg Ice Tigers, for the simple fact Martin Yernick is still there, and I know that he would take my right now out of the NCAA. He could easily walk into the Nuremberg Ice Tigers and be a big star right now, but he has dreams of playing more games in the National Hockey League than his father. But when that decision comes to fruition, I think that there'll be definitely a scenario where it'll be a consideration for maybe John Craighead to return to Germany and do a ceremonial drop of the puck, and maybe have the first father-son hockey player. Much different than the style that I bring. Both my sons are very skilled hockey players. They're not fighters. They're very talented and play a much different style than I have. But one of the reasons for that is that I knew the game was evolving, so I teach the game much different from how I was taught it 30 years ago. So for a lot of people, they give this stigmatism that if the player's a physical player, that's the only way he understands the game, and that's the only way he's going to teach it. But what they need to understand is when kids grow up, they don't grow up as child adolescents and say, I want to be a fighter and beat people up for a living. They grow up saying that, I want to be Wayne Gretzky, I want to be Marilyn, I want to be a Connor McDavid, I want to be a Sidney Crosby. We all wanted to be goal scorers and be the superstars. We never grew up saying that we want to beat people up for a living in the game of hockey. So deep down inside, you know, we still have love and passion for the game. You don't go and have an opportunity to play in the National Hockey League if you don't respect the game and understand the fundamentals of the game. There's only 6,000 hockey players in the history of the world that have ever played in the National Hockey League. I'm just fortunate enough to be able to have my cup of coffee in that league, live a dream, and then go on to have the experience to travel the world, understand that other countries love this game as well, and share that experience. And just to have two boys that are going on to do that is just a blessing in disguise for me. And then to own a junior team and help develop players that have gone on to play in the National Hockey League and have them call me after their first NHL game and say, Coach Craighead, I just got to thank you so much for believing in me and supporting my dream. And it's just so well worth it in the long run. It's much bigger than just the game of hockey. The relationships that you make, the relationship that I had with your father was absolutely fantastic. Even though it was such a short period of time that we were together, we shared some really intimate moments that will last for a lifetime. And obviously it meant a lot to him to pass that on to you. And then years later, we're having this conversation. So, you know, there's so many great relationships that are made through this game that's much bigger than the game. And I think that's important to take out of the game. And that's what keeps me going and keeps me involved with it today.
Yeah, that's really awesome, and that shows how big the game is. And yeah, in my last question was indeed how your sons play the game of hockey, but you also already told me that they are more skillful players than you. But because I was interested if they're also more like the enforcer style of hockey players, but you already told me. If some of one of your sons plays in Germany, I'll promise you we will be there and make the first interview with him. I promise you. John, I want to thank you. I want to thank very, very much because, yeah, that was awesome to talk to you. It was you're so experienced hockey player. You have done so much. You played in so many teams. You have played with so many great guys. So that's very, very, very awesome that you took some time for us to do this interview. That means so much to us. Can't thank you enough for it. We hope everything you are doing, you are planning, your business, your team, your survivor camp, everything is going the way you want it, because you're just a great guy. I'm privileged to at least know you a little bit, not as good as my father did, but yeah, maybe someday I will come to Vancouver and maybe we can meet up
and have a Warsteiner.
Yes, that's the last one I wanna ask you. Do you wanna say something in German to our viewers?
Es tut mir wirklich so leid, hier ist das so peinlich. Mein Deutsch ist nicht so gut. Ich habe vergessen so viel. Aber my experience nach Deutschland war sehr schön. Und ich vermisse alles. And I will return one day.
Okay.
Ich komme zurück.
Yeah, we would love to see you here again. If you're coming over, please let us know.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And
we have to thank you.
Ich liebe Deutschland.
Deutschland liebt John Craighead.
Tschüss.
Bye. Tschüss.
It's okay.